I was saying all of this stuff, and I was getting so much hate, bro. Like, I was getting people mauling at me. I'm getting New World, graybeard, balding, 35-year-old craft beer drinking dads telling me, shut the up. This game is gonna be it. This game is gonna be lit.
The absolute only thing I actually take as umbrage in terms of Asmon's video is I don't think I'm going gray at all in terms of at least my beard. But as a fellow craft beer drinking bearded dad, I guess balding, you know what? Why not just like full force this, take off the old beanie? People say I don't. They obviously don't watch all my videos. But hello, everyone, and welcome to Ginger Prime. I'm your craft bearded dad balding representation here in the New World community and other MMORPGs. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. It's unscripted, but overall, Kira TV released a video. Asmon reacted to it, and you guys asked me my thoughts about all of it. And so that's what I want to sit down and talk with you guys about today. Now, all in all, like, I do want to sit down and actually come up with a video that is focused primarily on the things that I think New World can do to succeed. So note that that video will be coming here in the future, maybe next week, depending on kind of my schedule and everything that is that kind of shakes out with work. But as somebody who has a job, 5 kids, and loves MMORPGs, I absolutely adore New World. And so a lot of my thoughts here are going to be clearly biased. A lot of my thoughts are also going to speak to the world in which that I play video games. And that is usually pretty kind of focused, and then also long breaks in between. So I play a lot of different MMORPGs. I love MMORPGs. I think they are perhaps the funnest, the best, the most endearing genre that we can sit down and play games together. And I think it's that core that I think continues to drive me into new ones, but also continue to kind of look at the market and the genre as a whole as it exists today, as it exists within some of the struggles that it's had in the past, struggles with monetization, struggles with getting new players in. Obviously, I'm not a new player. Obviously, the question is, will my kids be interested in playing MMORPGs? And if so, what's that ultimately going to look like? Now, we're still years away from them from actually diving into these games, but in this video, I want to really kind of focus in on some of the key issues that I take, namely with how people speak about New World and how they like to label it as a failure. And I honestly don't think that it's a failure whatsoever, but maybe my context, maybe my expectation isn't necessarily aligning with gamers. So chances are we're going to disagree in this video, and that's perfectly fine. You can let me know what your thoughts are. I love disagreement. I love discussion, especially around video games. So any and all comments are obviously welcome. But New World has always been a new IP by a new unknown studio facing extreme competition among already established video games. And I think they knocked it out of the park when you factor all that in. Is New World perfect? No. Does New World have issues? Yes. What do I want to see improved? A lot. I would like to see a lot of things improve with New World. And maybe I'll kind of talk about that here. Again, this is unscripted. This is just my raw thoughts coming from Asmon's and us, essentially Kira's video. Again, links that are in the description to their videos. Go check them out. Give them some thumbs up. Subscribe to their, content and channels. Like, this isn't about trying to dunk on anyone, because chances are I would think that I'm in the minority of opinions, but I tend to be in the minority of opinions based off of life choices. I've got 5 kids. They keep me plenty busy. I'm very excited to play games with them in the future. And hopefully New World is going to be one of those games that we get to play together. I think New World is a smashing success, but they don't appeal to a lot of players, because MMOs tend not to. The fact that it launched the way it launched, I was really impressed. The bugs and the issues, clearly nobody wants that, and clearly that's set them back. Probably what they didn't want to see. I think they probably, and they've stated this, they really wanted to be working on more content rather than having to struggle to fix bugs. So ultimately, there's going to be this kind of, odor, as you will, that is going to keep players away from this game for the short term. New World's goal, and when you look at just the numbers, and especially like Kira points this out, the thing that I disagree with all of them on is they don't actually matter. Now, you matter as a gamer, and you know, players in this game do matter, but a lot of people are focusing in on the percentages of the games and the quote-unquote drop. Yet New World is still bringing in anywhere from 75 to like 120,000 players usually in a given week. Now, overall, percentage-wise, it has finally fallen out of the top 10, and essentially it's always been about how do you invite players back in. Now, New World's mutator patch just launched, patch 1.3, and with that, people have been asking me, hey Brian, like, what is this patch? Do you think this is going to be the big content patch for the game that drives people back in? And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, February's update is only focusing, the next update 1.4, is only focusing on bugs, balances, and kind of banning bots, right? So all in all, that in and of itself is a great and very smart play in terms of content rollout, because it gets to focus in on the hardcore players who need something else to do and who might not step into something like Lost Ark or another game of that measure. When you look at February and honestly March, you're looking at some fierce competition. Fierce. Now, I thought Final Fantasy XIV was going to be really fierce competition to New World back in November, December, and honestly, it maybe took a couple players away, but all in all, like, New World really is kind of in a class of its own. Final Fantasy XIV and New World really aren't competing because they offer something different to both different parties. Like, Final Fantasy XIV is a Final Fantasy game for me. There's no way I'm going to miss that. So obviously I wasn't playing New World as often as I do on the daily basis, but now that I've finished Endwalker, I am playing, a New World as much as I possibly can, because again, I can't get enough. Now, I don't have 1,000 hours like Asmon has. I'm coming up on 200 hours, and that feels pretty good. I like to take these games at a decent pace. And even Asmon points out very rightfully that players who really know life the game, they're going to have the hardest time with it. They're going to be the ones who struggle the most with it, and rightfully so, because you're going to run into those issues and those walls that a player like myself, fishing, gathering, doing quests, like, all in all, enjoy. Now, I've hit level 60, and my biggest problem is that experience dries up. Quests that are reward, experience, they don't transfer into anything. I personally think with the gypsum system that's been added and the mutator system that's been added, they're really setting themselves up for a really strong spring, maybe a patch 1.5, or at some point a patch 2.0, either later in 2022 or sometime in early 2023. And that's kind of where we're going to talk about expansions and essentially that whole business model. This has always been about, like, if you think about year one within the MMORPG, and perhaps I should have started off with a video of this, but I was at Final Fantasy XIV's 1.0 launch. I touched all of these different MMOs, with the exception of World of Warcraft, at launch, and have run into a lot of different issues and have seen this same kind of slope. The one thing that Kira points out in his video, especially as it relates to the stats, are all established MMOs that didn't launch last year. But if you go look back in time, at those various launches, they've all run into the same thing. It's always been about how do you invite players back in. And Asmon actually points out a couple of things here, talking about the Azoth travel cost. At the end of the day, players just want to play the game. They just want to have fun. You, in a way, and even to Josh Strife Hayes' credit, because he really knocked this out of the park on our podcast, like, there is a sense that you need to start to attract the casual player. And right now, the casual player is being told by content creators and even indirectly by Amazon to not necessarily jump into their game. Now, personally speaking, I think it's an incredible experience, and occasionally the game goes on like 50% sale. So even at $40, I've already gotten my value out of it, going up into $200. But at $25, like, it truly is a world-class game. And what I mean by that is that the foundation of New World is so solid that I can really see a bright future for the game. And that's where I think a lot of people get into this speculative market. We were talking about NFTs earlier on the channel today, talking about how Ubisoft is kind of doing their shenanigans, and NFTs are speculative. That's the biggest problem. A lot of MMO commentators in this space are very speculative, and they're very negative towards New World. And I think they're just hedging their bets. Ultimately, untested studio, untested IP. The question is, will they remain? And the only way to answer that is with content. I continue to say it. I'll continue to say it. Content is king. If New World can keep putting out content and they can keep addressing issues, bugs, balances, and more, I think they're going to be absolutely just fine. Another thing that they point out is that the population, you can't see who's on each specific server. I think Asmon knocks it out of the park from a, PR perspective. If that's done because they're sitting here worried that players are just going to sit here and meme on the game itself, I actually think that's the wrong thing. I think let players meme. Keep New World in the conversation. Keep talking about New World. The worst thing that can happen to a game is people stop talking about it. Bad press isn't bad for the game, and that's something that I think I see always in the social media space, is that when you feel like someone's dumping on a game, that's actually good for a game. Kira TV taking time to make that video is good for New World. Asmon taking time to react to that video is good for New World. Me taking time to make this video is good for New World. The worst thing that could happen is New World falls out of the conversation. Now, the question is it to what degree? Because ultimately they need to sit down and they need to focus and they need to build. One of the things that they could easily do to make me a happy player is that if they made XP have some value at level cap. They've done it for all the crafting and gathering, so it's really fun for me to continue to level up my skills, my crafts, my trades, because that in and of itself doesn't feel like I'm being punished for having a hit cap on various different skills. But what they need to do is the same thing for XP. And for me as a player, getting experience and leveling up and hooking me up with some gypsum so that I can increase my expertise level, I think is the easiest win, is the easiest fix overall. Just give me the ability to let experience flow into my bar, and then we're gonna be happy. We're gonna be perfectly happy in that regards. Now they could do other things with it, but at the end of the day, the first thing that just hits and just sucks the enjoyment out of it is when experience starts having no value whatsoever. It doesn't have to be the be all end all. It doesn't have to be directly tied into power, but when I'm going and fishing, crafting and gathering, doing all these activities that I enjoy, I'm enjoying them for the fun, but it'd be nice that they're also just kind of feeding me with some experience still that's maybe applying to the gypsum system. So that way, if I have a little bit of time or a lot of time, and that's where, Josh Strife knocked it out of the park in terms of that casual player. The mutators, they're hardcore content. They're for the hardest core of content that you can have, and the game needs that. You have to have a balance. You got to appease the hardcore, you got to appease the casual, and that's what makes MMOs so difficult to be sustainable, especially at the start. You're always going to have that dip. You're going to always have that that rush in and excitement and dip down. But the thing is that can they invite players back? If they can't, New World's in trouble. If they can't get new players to come check out the game, yes, that's when they've failed. But I don't believe they failed. I don't think they've failed in the short term. I don't think they failed in the long term. However, the next couple of months, I think are going to be very telling. Essentially, the first expansion is going to be more telling than anything. Right now, there's a real good economy in terms of YouTube content on dunking on New World, and that's actually really good for the game. So hopefully that kind of keeps up. But the conversation around it should always be and continue to be, we're hoping for the best for New World. We're hoping that it's successful. We're hoping and rooting for the devs. We really want them, as I kind of slightly burp, Dadcast, right? We really want them to have the most success possible because the genre as a whole wins. If Amazon and New World fail, the genre as a whole takes a hit. And that is going to discourage more investment, more like innovation and all of that. New World's an experiment. It does things different. It does things that are the same as others. And I think they knocked it out of the park in terms of what they get right. It's a blast to play. I love having fun. I can't recommend this game enough. But I'm not a one MMO guy. And maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the magic in how I enjoy games the way I enjoy games. But that's also according to my life and my status and my history and where I am in this whole crazy content creator, dad gamer world. Anyway, guys, thanks to Kira, thanks to Asmon for making their videos, and thanks for their support in continuing to talk about New World. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video from this balding, thankfully not going gray. That's the one thing Asmon got wrong. Ginger. So thanks guys for taking your time to listen to me today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you made it all the way to the end, you could say copium, 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 and that way I know that you made it all the way to the end. I'm sure I'm going to get at least a copium or two without somebody making it to the end, but I'll know you actually made it to the end of the video. Love you faces. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh yeah.